8:32 exactly. Welcome to News and Views right here on Salam Media. Now, last month, Haq Umar, former chairperson of Amaanat Investment Holdings, paid for a full-page advertorial in the Al Qalam newspaper, proclaiming his innocence and his son's innocence of any wrongdoing in the ongoing saga of woe facing the company shareholders. Subsequently, investors whose returns have dwindled due to alleged unscrupulous practices during Omar's tenure requested a response in order to clarify the case. This saga or shenanigans has been going on for the past couple of months, and we understand that they have about 6,000 shareholders, many of those being widows and obviously pensioners. And I just think it's an absolute crying shame that this issue has been brought, it's just as well it's been brought to light, but a crying shame that a fellow Muslim has been entrusted to run this company, and then he goes on and plunders and enriches him and his family with the takings of the poorest of the poor. And also, obviously, there are also some wealthy shareholders, but I just think that he should be brought to book, and whatever means we may have available, he needs to account for his wrongdoings, and the monies need to be recouped. But Ayesha Kajee, who is a human rights activist, governance analyst, and a writer based in Johannesburg, has been approached to obviously look into the matter and to respond to the article in the Al Qalam. Aisha, assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the program.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for having me on the show.
Lovely to have you here. And I must say that I'm really happy that they approach you to respond to this piece in the Al Qalam, because I've been following the story for quite a while and can't understand why this man has not yet been brought to book. Is it
Well,
about as Muslims, forgive and move on? Allah will deal with him. I say yes, inshallah, Allah will deal with him when he reaches the akhirah. But we need to hold people accountable so that other people don't get away with murder.
absolutely. I think, Julie, while there is the Islamic principle of covering your brother's sins, as it were, in this case it should not apply because so many widows, pensioners, Muslim charitable organizations have been impacted by the decrease in their shares from about 26 rands prior to the onset of COVID to only 5 rand 50 per share dividend in the most recent circular of the shareholders. So you can imagine that people who depend on this for their livelihoods, for their day-to-day sustenance, are really suffering. I've heard really tragic stories of widows who've had to move in with their children, who've become the unwanted dependent grandparents instead of the fun independent grandparents. I've heard of people who haven't been able to afford chronic medication, and indeed of one case at least in which someone has died in those circumstances. I've spoken to the boards and trustees of charitable institutions such as burial societies, masjids, and school waqf trusts, all of whom have been severely impacted by this and who, Alhamdulillah, have had to turn to the communities who have been generous but are now surviving in many cases mouth to mouth, hand to mouth on a month to month basis. I spoke to somebody, the former board member of a masjid on the south coast last night, and he said to me that over 50% of their funds used to come from the Amaanat investment. They've been investing with this company for over 50 years. And it is only recently that this has happened, only in the last 8 to 10 years, when Mr. Hassan Umar became the chair. Since then, there apparently, allegedly, has been some severe wrongdoing. There's been a forensic report uh, commissioned by the current board, which shows that he is at least in conflict of interest and has to answer for at least about 166 million rands, but possibly more. And he's not the only one implicated. There are other former board members implicated who benefited from some of the underhand dealings. You can find it, all that I have managed to uncover and basically validate through documents in the public domain or that shareholders sent to me. You can find that in my article in the current issue of Al Kalam, which landed this weekend.
Okay, so you've responded. Your article has appeared in the Al Qalam. Um, we know that, as you've indicated, there's a new board. What are they? How are they responding to both the articles and the? From what I've read uh, in your article, the forensic investigator was pretty thorough. So there seems to be very solid, um, solid information to take this matter to court. I also understand from reading your article that uh, Mr. Umar has invested in properties in the Western Cape, in Durban, and these are very high-end properties. How do we move forward in this regard? Because I understand the current board members can't comment on the matter because they're suggesting it is sub judice. But we need answers. We need to hold people accountable. We need to recoup the monies. I'm thinking state capture. So here we have a situation of community capture, Muslim
Absolutely.
community capture. I mean, it is disgusting.
Absolutely. Amaanat was set up, by the late Mr. A.M. Mullah and others with a mission of actually providing a halal Sharia compliant investment for both large investors and the smaller investors among those whom I've mentioned. So yes, it is disgusting. It is community capture. And really those who have perpetrated or allegedly perpetrated these actions should stop hiding behind their families, behind powerful names, etc., and really examine their consciences and realize they will be held accountable for this in the akhirah, if nowhere else. Several people said to me, don't they have a conscience? Don't they know that they're going to be asked about this in their graves, if nowhere else?
But
So
you see,
really,
this is
really important.
You see, Aisha, this is the issue. People always assume, oh, when I get to meet my maker, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is so Ghafoor Rahim, I will eventually be forgiven. So they get away literally with murder here. And I'm saying it again, they need to be held accountable. But now, Muhammad Peer, who is the spokesperson for Amaanat Minorities, a civic group of about 52 minority shareholders, says that their understanding is that Mr. Umar acted with board approval in contravention of SAICA rules, but they also want
Without
answers
board
for,
approval, actually.
is it with, oh, thank you for the correction, you're right, without board approval, but they also want answers from other previous board members who failed in their fiduciary duties.
Yes.
So here is a group of people, Mohammed Peer, spearheading this little group of people wanting to bring this matter possibly to closure. He wants answers and he wants to recoup monies. Do you think he's going to be successful at all?
I think it's going to take time, quite frankly. There does seem to be a high level of trust in the new board, who are all providing their services gratis to Amaanat Investment Holdings. The new board is made up, as I understand it, of legal experts, property experts, chartered accountants, and some experienced businessmen. So it's quite a good mix. There does, as I said, seem to be a really high level of trust in them. However, when properties, the property portfolio has been decreased by selling off profitable properties and then buying dud properties. For example, the Saveways Mall in Witbank was bought at about 700 million and then refurbished at 800 million. The monies were very circuitously routed through property mogul Nick Giorgio, who's also been implicated in many other property scams, right? And allegedly other board members benefited from that. Markino House in Randburg, Johannesburg is another such property where some of the profits allegedly went to another board member, Mr. Bana, and to his family members. Now, this seems to be obviously very much against SICA rules, against the Companies Act, etc. So they really need to stand up and say what happened, to actually explain their actions and where they benefited if they did. Both Mr. Umar and the other former board members, including Mr. Bana, including Mr. Musa, and others. So the community needs to be demanding answers. The current board, it's going to take them time. You now have a property portfolio that's been severely impacted. You've also got a situation where it is alleged that Mr. Umar and the former board were paying out dividends at the former rate of 7%, even when only about 2% income was coming in. So you've got about 30 properties in this portfolio with about 600 tenants, but of those, only 400 are tenanted. In other words, 200 properties are lying vacant, yet Mr. Umar's company was the property management company, Coral Management. They ought to have been finding tenants for these properties. They ought to have been ensuring that these properties were maintained. They ought to have been ensuring that things such as fire extinguishers were in good order, etc., which I believe in some properties they are not. This is what has been told to me. So obviously Coral wasn't performing its duties properly, yet it was being paid 5% for maintaining those properties and managing those properties. Also, obviously, you've got a property portfolio now which is not performing at the level that it was supposed to have been performing. They kept the dividends inflated by allegedly taking new investors' monies and paying out dividends from those. If that is true, Julie, what is that but a Ponzi
A
scheme?
Ponzi scheme. Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, Obviously, from what you are sharing with us this morning and from what I've read thus far, is there was huge mismanagement, conflict of interest, and a situation where Mr. Umar and his cronies, you referred to his son, you referred to a Mr. Bana and other ex-board members, were lining their pockets. I'm wondering, why does Mohammed Peer and his Amaanat minority not take this matter to SARS for further investigation? Because they will indeed get the type of support and response that they need. And I say it's, they really need to go to the most extreme measures to bring this matter and these people to book.
Absolutely, to SARS, to the Hawks, to the NPA. But as we know, the administration of justice in this country is unfortunately slow. So it's going to take time. And also, Julie, I must add here that perhaps our community members should really start thinking about how they operate in financial terms. Because you and I know that there are people who utilize what has long been called uplang monies, monies that they have not declared to SARS, okay, and invested in various schemes. I'm not saying particularly this scheme, but if there are people who are culpable there, they need to have a rethink as well. Because really, if we are living in this country, if we are proud citizens of South Africa, we should abide by the laws of the country.
And very sadly, in the name of Islam, people go around and they're swindling the poorest of the poor, widows, pensioners. And we also know that the wealthy people that are involved here as well, they too have invested in these companies. So, but it's sad to say, in the name of Islam, people go out and swindle other really, they swindle people, and because I think you're a Muslim, I can trust you, and you reassure me that mosque committees and NGOs, NPOs, etc., are all investing in this company, and I get taken in because you seem to be a leader of the community. You are aligned to well-known names in the community, and we
Absolutely.
we get taken in by that. Going forward, what can we now expect? What are the well, obviously, the current board has indicated the matter is sub judice, which means that obviously they are taking this matter further. That
They
there
are.
are that they have taken legal action against Mr. Umar and his
And I
cronies.
believe they will be taking legal action against others as the information comes to light. This is what shareholders have told me. They've been assured, and there's already a case against Mr. Umar to recover, as I said, the 166 million that was uncovered by Eckhard Volker of the Forensic Services Company. But I've been again led to understand that this is only the tip of the iceberg.
Sure.
As I've said to you early in this show, Julie, widows, pensioners, children, people who need to pay school fees, mosque boards, burial societies. These are the things that have been really severely impacted. The community should be outraged and should demand answers from the alleged perpetrators and from their extended families who appear to be protecting them.
Absolutely, and that's where we're going to leave it. Undoubtedly, you will be talking with us in the future as this story unfolds and gains momentum. And I sincerely do hope that SARS and the Hawks and other such bodies get involved and help really bring this issue to light, bring all the perpetrators to book, and all the people that have been swindled get back part or all of their monies. Ayesha Kajee, human rights
Inshallah.
activist, governance analyst, and writer based in Johannesburg. Thank you indeed for talking to us, and I commend you for taking on this piece of work because it does. It's really this is what community work is all about. So thank you indeed.
Shukran jazilan, Julie, and may Allah restore to those who have been most severely impacted more than what they have lost, inshallah.
Inshallah, Ameen. Shukran. Salaam alaikum to you.
Wa alaikum salam.
It is 8:49 a.m. and coming up in a minute or two, we'll be talking with Dr. Shaida Umar, clinical director at the Teddy Bear Clinic. And obviously, we're going to be looking at minors in custody and mental health issues.